In this video, we're going to tackle 5 very important keys for CELPIP reading that include timing, concepts, not just keywords, but concepts, use of your memory, reading resources with complete strategies, a bonus tip, and the last tip, the 5th one, the most important one that you need for your CELPIP reading exam. For our very first tip, let's try to understand how to manage time in CELPIP reading. This is part 1. We're going to look at parts 2, 3, and 4 and discuss how to manage the time, because it's not as straightforward as you think it is. So you see you have on the left hand side a passage. Over here on the right hand side you have the questions. All questions in CELPIP reading are multiple choice, so that's one thing for you to know. Now when you are in part 1 and in part 4, you see the format looks the exact same. You have the passage on the left, questions on the right, and in both cases you notice there's section 1 of these initial questions, and then section 2 where it's a comment or a response letter. Same thing happens in part 1. You have these initial questions and then you have the response or comment section. Here's what you got to do. You want to spend 80% of your time up here in section 1, because this is where you will be reading the questions and for the first time reading the passage, coming back and matching them. Once you're done with all of these, you would have read the entire passage by the end of the first section, and now you would know exactly what this passage is about. So for the next section, again, this is part 1, and you see the same thing for part 2. For the next section, you don't have to spend the same amount of time. You don't have to read everything again. You have read it already. In fact, if you try to even do that, read everything again to answer section 2, I guarantee you, you will never be able to do it. You will always exceed time. And CELPIP reading is not built in that way. It is built for you to spend lesser time on section 2. And in all fairness, you need just a little amount of time in section 2 because this is a response or a comment by another person who has read this or came across this passage initially. And based on how this passage sounds, based on the tone, this person is going to respond. It's just like you reading a newspaper and then closing it, putting it down, and saying, this is what I think about the article. So you don't have to look at the newspaper again for that. You just give your comments and thoughts. So here, when you read it the first time, ensure you are understanding the tone and the idea and the concept. Don't just do keyword and answers up here, because that will later haunt you, because later you have to estimate how a person would react to what they have read. Okay, so this is for sections 1 and 4. Let's talk about section 2. Here, something completely different happens and you need a different strategy. You got a picture here, and then you have this text related to the picture. Now the picture really is just a few images, but a bunch of text that define those images. So you have text, but much lesser compared to the other sections. So what you can do is you can spend 2 minutes. You want to spend time this way. Spend 2 minutes to read the entire picture. It's easy because it's less text. So here you would actually read it first, get an idea of what each of these columns mean, and then go directly into the questions. Simple. Now, when it comes to part 3, a lot of people get really intimidated at the start because what happens is you're matching this point with this paragraph. You're matching this with this paragraph. So you're seeing which paragraphs match whatever sentence. It's a matching part in part 3. So once you start, time will go very slow. So don't be intimidated. For example, you see 9 questions here, right? So you would say, okay, around question 4 or 5, I should spend half time and then the half time for the rest of them. No, this is not how it works. In fact, up to question 4, you probably would spend 70% of your time. And you would think, oh my God, I have less time left for the remaining. That's not the case. Look, when you are doing the questions initially, you're reading the questions time and time again, matching them, going back and reading them. By the time you're around paragraph C and D, you already have a very good idea about the questions. You don't have to read them every single time. The keywords go in your head really well. And you already have some answers at that time. For example, when you're at paragraph C, for A and B, you probably have selected 3 to 4 options. Now, if you're at paragraph C, it means you have less options to choose from. So you would be reading fast and coming back and matching fast. Plus, whatever is left at the end is just going to be E, which is not discussed. So that E answer you can put in 5 seconds. That would be 1 to 3 of your questions, usually. So do not be intimidated if you're super slow at the start and fast at the end. That is actually the best way to do it. Now that we're done with the timing, let's talk about the concepts. And this is where the difference occurs in CELPIP, because you have to not just look at the keywords, but you have to look at the concept. And if you look at the concept, you gain a much better understanding of the question and you're able to spot it much faster. So one thing we already know at this point, if you have done CELPIP or you have practiced, the exact words in the question are not mentioned mostly in the passage. They are paraphrased. So an advanced strategy is, if I see this, what primary advantage does AI provide in educational context? I would think about synonyms like advantage. I'll think about pros. In educational context, I would think about learning context, and then go here. That's surely advanced more than looking at the keywords. But again, you're not understanding the concept. Here's what I mean. What primary advantage does AI provide in educational context? The concept here is, what is the benefit? How does AI help in education? How does AI improve learning? Or is there some benefit where if I use AI, I'm gonna get better in education, I'm gonna learn faster? Now that is understanding the concept. And in the passage, if there's anything mentioned about now AI has sped up learning, you will find it. You will say, oh, that was the thing, the concept I was looking for. But look, I said AI has sped up learning. Sped up has nothing to do with advantage or educational context. I mean, learning is a different word. But I knew the concept. And if I do that with every question, and it's really handy when it comes to part 3, because these things are really paraphrased and you're literally looking for matching concepts. Once you do this, you're able to find questions in the passage faster, and you're able to skip the trap of paraphrasing. Tip number 3 is memorizing, and by that I mean memorizing things in a smart way. This is what a lot of teachers fail to tell students, and students should practice this part of their memory before you go into the reading exam. Here's what I mean. And this is tied to my second tip, which was about looking at the concepts. Once you're looking at the concepts the way I explained it, you would automatically learn better because you're visualizing and imagining. At the end, when you're looking at all these questions, or you're looking at 2 questions at a time or 1 question at a time, what happens very commonly is you're looking at the passage, you forgot what the question was asking. So you come back and check, and then you go back. Then you forget again, then you go back here. This happens quite a lot if you are not having a good memory. This again is a huge problem when it comes to part 3, because here the technique is you have to look at all the 9 questions, understand the keywords, then go to paragraph A and then match it whenever you find a matching keyword. But how would you remember if you don't even remember 2 questions, let alone all 9? And that's where memory is needed. Similarly for part 2, I said spend 2 minutes looking at the picture, and then once you have an idea, come back and match it with the given options here. But what if the time comes when you have to match it and you already forgot the picture and now you have to go back and match it? So this memory problem is also something that needs to be improved. It is not long-term memory, it's short-term. You read something, you should try your best to remember it, and then it helps you instead of you looking at the passage in question and passage in question again and again. Now, my second tip, which was about looking at the concepts, that'll help you visualize and improve your memory. But there's also tip number 5 coming up later, which will also help a lot with your memory. Tip number 4 is to go through a lot of reading strategies, because the ones here are not nearly enough. Reading is very detailed, and in my videos, I've explained every single concept with examples on all types of CELPIP reading, easy or hard. All you gotta do is go in the description, check out my CELPIP reading playlist. In fact, you will find playlists there for writing, reading, listening, speaking, the whole thing. Check all of them out if you're struggling with reading. This bonus tip is actually very simple, something that everybody should know, but yet people make mistakes here. So if you're in the exam, you're running out of time, if you have anything unmarked, just put an answer. Just make any guess if you're really in a rush. If you have a little bit more time, analyze your options, put an educated guess, something that is close. Don't leave anything blank, you will only lose marks. Also, remember, you will have maybe B or C or A and D, two very close options, and that happens to everybody. In fact, in paragraph or part 3, you would have the same issue. You might have this thing, which is mentioned in paragraph A and paragraph B. So you're not sure, and that's okay. In every reading part, you might have two close choices. When you have that, put an answer first, because if the time runs out, at least you got something there. So you put something first, but keep this in mind because this was something you're in doubt with. Do everything else. Don't get stuck on this one question. Do everything else, and then come back to the ones where you had a doubt, fix them, pick your final answer, and by the end you'll be even more clear, and at least you'll get something. Even if the time runs out, you would have something here instead of this being unmarked. The fifth and final tip is the most important thing, and that is to practice. What you need to do is prepare with challenging mock tests like these that you have on your screen, and we provide mock tests that are both AI marked and teacher marked. So you get the best of the best and really high quality mock tests that'll prepare you for the exam. Without these, there is no way you will be ready for the real exam experience and environment. If you want access to these, it's pretty simple. We'll give you access to 25 of these mock tests, plus 15 hours of training videos, plus feedback, as I mentioned, and a lot of free resources with this offer. Check it out. It is called our CELPIP $49 self-paced course. It is in the description, and it has sold more than 70,000 copies at this point. People have given this 5 stars left and right because this formula works. If your exam is in 3 hours, you can do a mock test. If your exam is in 3 months, you can do a bunch of them and get well prepared. But do not go into the exam without doing any of these. This is my final tip and a big recommendation for you to follow. And I hope this, along with the other tips, help you out. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, send us an email. Please also like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk very soon.